Well, hey everybody, welcome to Sam's Doing Stuff. What am I doing today? Well, I'm going to attempt to build a 15-gallon fuel transfer tank complete with a BreAro 20-gallon per minute 12-volt pump. So here's all the stuff I've kind of thrown together here. There's a lot of pieces, parts, and hopefully this will all make sense when it's all done. It'll make a lot of sense if it actually works. This is the BreAro fuel transfer pump. This was sent to me from BreAro, and I wanted to be able to use this with my old JohnDow Industries 15-gallon fuel transfer tank. The absolute worst part of that JohnDow Industries 15-gallon tank is this nozzle. It's a gravity-fed nozzle, and it just took forever to empty that tank. So when BreAro said they wanted to send me a 12-volt electric fuel pump, I thought, yeah, I wonder if I can get it to work with the tank I already have. So we're gonna start with this. Yeah, a plastic pallet. My thought is that I can mount my existing fuel tank right to that pallet and make it easier to load in and out of the truck when I fill it with fuel. That's not going anywhere. So I feel the necessity to let y'all know the only reason we're able to do this right now is because I did my research first. And that's the only reason I'm alive right now, because I thought in my brilliance that, well, I could just weld a bunghole onto the top of this, you know? Now, for those of you who don't know what a bunghole is, you might have learned what a bunghole was the same way I did.
What the hell's a bunghole? Will you find out what a bunghole is?
You are a bunghole.
Bunghole says a hole in a barrel or keg for pouring in or drawing out liquid.
Bunghole.
Yeah, as he said, a bunghole is, just a hole that you put liquids in and out of a container with. So I was gonna weld that stainless steel bunghole right there. Then I started researching because, I thought this had gasoline in it. It'd probably be a good idea to find out how to do that safely. So this here is a combustible gas leak detector. And I want to let you know, I'm not going to tell you how because I don't want any liability. Don't blow yourself up. But I cleaned this tank out thoroughly, according to what I researched. And I thought I could still kind of smell gas in there even after I cleaned it out. So we're going to take this and we're going to see what kind of reading we get. Oh my goodness. As you can tell, that's not a good sign. There's definitely combustible fumes in there, even with the tank empty. And from the advice I got on some forums that I read, I'll just let you know, if you have to ask, don't do it, period. If you don't know what you're doing, no, don't try to weld a gas tank, okay? We're gonna move on from there. So yeah, we're not welding anything, and yeah, you could use JB Weld, I suppose, but you still have to drill a hole in the tank, and you gotta file it, and you gotta sand and stuff. Any type of possibility of a spark, not gonna happen, nope. So then I thought, well, what if I could just draw the gas straight from the tank through this hole here where you fill it? Well, that's a possibility. As a matter of fact, the gas hose that I bought comes with this little screen filter that you could put on the end of this hose, and it would drop right down in there, and you could siphon gas right out of the tank. But then you got to worry about dripping gas all over the place, and you got to put the cap back on after you fill it and finish whatever. It just, it just seemed too messy. So then the idea came to me that I'd love to be able to just draw it from where the hose, that gravity-fed hose, fed to in the first place. So unscrewed that. It's a 1/2-inch NPT fitting, and of course it even has a valve here that I can shut it off when it's not in use. So that, my friends, is exactly where we're going to start. I bought a fitting right here that goes from 1/2-inch NPT to 1-inch barbed. That will fit the gas hose that I purchased. So like I said, that 1-inch barbed fitting is going to fit right into this pipe, this fuel line pipe. That pipe also just so happens to come with enough fittings that there's one that's going to fit our pump. By the way, I'll leave a link to all the stuff I use here in the description. Hopefully it helps out. Okay, our fuel tank is pretty much set and ready to go. All we have to do is hook the hose to it. But now it's time to prepare the pump. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little plastic cork out of the bottom of this feed tube. I'm going to replace that with this 1-inch NPT to 1-inch barbed fitting that came with the gas hose. So as it stands now, if I connected one end of this hose to this pump, this barbed fitting, and connected the other end of the hose to the other barbed fitting we put on the tank, the pump should pump fuel from the tank through the pump. That's a big step. That's good, you know, that's the main goal here. So now we have to figure out a way to mount this to the pallet. This connection right here, this threading right here is designed to fit a 2-inch bunghole on a container.
Bunghole.
Well, we're not using a container with a 2-inch bunghole. So I want to use this to mount the pump to the pallet. What? Yes, I'm going to use this fitting. Instead of mounting it to a tank, I'm going to mount the whole pump to a pallet. Stay with me here. So this is just your standard 2-inch Schedule 40 clean out. It has a cap on it like this when you buy it in the store. Looks just like that. So 2-inch NPT clean out. Well, that fits perfectly on that thread, just like that. So of course, now I'm thinking, if I can attach Schedule 40 to this, and I can feed this down into a Schedule 40 2-inch pipe, I can put my pipe on the end of this barbed pipe and have this go down through, and I've chosen this little elbow here, T-joint, whatever you want to call it, and I could feed the pipe through here first, and then up onto here, like so, and then get this all together like that. Now you see where we're going here? You see what I'm cooking up here? All right. Then, if I take this piece of 2-inch Schedule 40, I can stick that in the bottom of that, and I can make a stand for this pump to stand on top of the pallet. All I have to do is drill a hole. We're going to get as much of that down in there as we can. The construction adhesive says takes 24 hours to fully cure. It's been 48. I had to look at my watch, 48. Anyway, I gotta cut this off now. This is always the part that makes me nervous when you have to cut something off. I don't want to cut it too high because the more height this has, the more leverage that pump is gonna have to pull it over. It's pretty strong. It's stuck in there pretty good. So anyway, I marked it. I just need enough that this sleeve will fit over and it'll hold it right there. Just go ahead and do it. Not bad, not bad. So see how short that is? I want this to fit down nice and snug like that. I am gonna glue this on, but I just wanna dry fit it. I want this aiming over slightly towards where the tube is going. Something like that, let's glue it on. While that PVC glue is setting up, go ahead and prep the pump a little bit more here. Remember, this down here. Oh, this is a heavy pump. Ugh. This that I put on to accept that rubber hose is not standard with this. It doesn't come with it. I bought that separately because I want to use this rubber hose. The BreAro pump comes with this extendable tube here that you sink down into a much larger tank. This is not made for these JohnDow tanks that I'm using. I'm adapting it to what I have, okay? Just want to be really clear about that. Now we're gonna try and connect this hose to this barb. So here we go. If you'll recall, I already screwed this into the pump, ready to put the hose on the barbed end. So take our little hose here. And the first thing I want to put on is a clamp. And I also want to put this fitting on over top of it like that. All right, let's get this thing shoved on. All the way on, just like that. All right, now we need to tighten that sucker down on it. Tighten that up about right there. That's not going anywhere. All right, now I can fit this up over and just screw it onto these threads, hopefully. I'll do that without cross-threading it. There we go. Now we're good. Now we got it. All right. It just really wanted to cross-thread. That on there nice and tight. Okay. Now, let's take the whole pump. And once again, this is designed to go onto a big metal tank. So if anything fails here, it's just an experiment. Anyway, feed this all the way through here, like that. And I am not gonna glue this fitting in place. I'm just gonna let it float. But that should set right down in there, just like that. It looks like it's gonna hold it. That's good. Oh, that's really good. It's a little loose-ish. You know, it wobbles a little. But if I glue this fitting, then I don't think I'll ever be able to take this whole thing apart. I don't know, I could unscrew this from the fitting, but man, I don't know if I want to do that. I think I'll just leave it loose for now. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, now the next thing I want to do is I want to put the nozzle and the hose on this thing. So here's your hose. It has a smaller end and a larger end. I believe the larger end fits into here. And then the smaller end has this nifty little swivel thing here so that it can swivel on the nozzle so your hose doesn't get all kinked up. All right, we'll put some tape on it, screw it into here, screw this onto here, and then screw this into here. Take the plug out. Make sure I hold this thing so it doesn't get away from me. And that's got to be tight enough. That's probably tight enough. There's nothing to get a hold of here because if I turn it for this, that's just going to turn. So it's basically got to be finger tight anyway. All right. Give that a good old 1 or 2 nuggets. That's got to be tight enough. And see how this swivels so you don't end up, you know, twisting your hose. All right, so this down is off. and up is on. Down is off, up is on, down is off, and you can just store it in there. Oh, I see it hooks. There's a hook up here. So when this goes in, you just switch it off. That's switch the pump off. And then that little hook hooks through there. And you just set it just like that. Now, if I'm transporting this to go fill up the tank, I will probably take this and take this and somehow wind it up on top. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure that out. There's gonna have to be some way of keeping this hose out of the way and then having this hook into there. Well, I'll get that worked out in a little bit, but we're getting somewhere. So speaking of getting somewhere, I just had a brilliant idea. I have 2 of these. The way I figure it is this. There's no reason that I can't bolt both of these to this pallet and then take this hose right here that's gonna be feeding from this tank, cut 2 equal length sections off of this and add a Y adapter. Feed from both tanks. So here we are. I installed the Y, and I cut this tube. These 2 are equal lengths. I figured that's important because if I want to feed from both of these tanks at the same time, I want equal length of tube. I know it's really kind of splitting hairs there with the amount of friction that I'm going to get, but in theory, let's just do it right. So all of these tubes are equal length, well these 2 are, and then it feeds up into here. So all I need to do now is connect both of these tubes to these tanks. This tank is screwed down, not a problem. I haven't screwed this one down yet because I need to move it in order to get the, let's just do it and I'll show you. So feed the whole thing down through here. One tube goes to the other tank, and this tube goes to this tank. Get that on there all the way. That's tight enough. I made a little adjustment here. You can always cut more off, but you can't put any on, so be careful. I cut a considerable amount of hose off of each one of those off of the Y because it was just too much. It was getting all, I want it to be nice and neat, you know? If you're gonna do it, let's do it right, okay? So now with those hoses the right length, this is nice and neat, and I'm actually gonna put a hose clamp right about here to hold that in place. I'll make sure that that hose doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't get kinked, it stays the way it's supposed to. It just seems like a really good idea. Perfect. I'm just trying to give you guys a view here of exactly how the hoses run underneath. Nice and neat, no kinks, everything can gravity feed down to the Y. I think we're good, ready to screw this one down the same way the other one is. Everything is attached. And I did it off camera because there were some choice words. It was not an easy task. I also did something else off camera. I decided that the PVC wasn't enough, just wasn't strong enough to hold that massive pump. So I took and just cut a piece of 2x4, used some metal strapping over the top of that, and that is going to be a lot more secure. I feel really good about that. That's not going anywhere. All right, we are so close to getting this thing operational. Before we go on to the next step, I want to let you guys know, watch to the end. I'm going to go over the cost of what it would take to build this, by the way, so you can make an informed decision. But let's get it running. So I've got a tractor battery, 12-volt tractor battery that I'm going to power this with, and I need to attach that to the pallet, of course. I'm just gonna use a piece of broken bungee cord, strap it over the top of the battery, attach it to the pallet. Should work. Now that the battery is secured to the pallet, let's move on. So BreAro provides you with the proper gauge wire. I think it's about 20 feet of this. This is made to be able to maybe have this in the back of your truck or whatever vehicle you're using. Run this wire to the front and connect it to your vehicle's battery. We're not gonna do that, we're gonna connect it to this. So I don't need all this wire. But before I go cutting it to length, we're gonna go ahead and wire it to the pump first. This right here is where the wiring goes in, and on the back of that, you can see here, this is where the wire will come out. So we need to remove that first, and then we'll hook up the end of the wire they provided. It's only a hot and a cold, or a positive and a negative to be precise. All right, let's get that off of there. That's not, I thought it was a 10 millimeter. Everything's 10 millimeter. That's an 8 millimeter. Oh, what am I missing here? Missing my brain. That should come right off. There we go. Well, that's unexpected. Or a positive, a negative, and a ground in here. But they say to hook the ground out here. And see, this is the confusing part to me. This screw right here is for grounding. Ignore this metal strapping that I put next to it. This screw right here is where you're supposed to attach your ground wire. But if they give you a ground wire right here, I guess it really doesn't matter. All right, so here's what you got with this. This was screwed into there. Just took this whole panel off, and then this comes out, and then inside of this, there's that rubber grommet in there to protect your wires. You're gonna feed your wires through there and then screw this back on over it. This is the ground wire they provide you with. It has a bare end right here. You see it, the bare end, there's your bare end. And then the other end has a loop on it to be able to attach to that screw. I'm not gonna use this wire. I actually have a leftover ground wire that has the loop on the end like the other one, but I've got an alligator clip on this end. And this is extremely handy because this thing's gonna be portable. I'm gonna wanna take this and maybe hook it to a metal ground somewhere that it's sitting, maybe in the barn, or maybe if I've got it on a trailer, you hook this to your trailer, just, you know, alligator clip it right to the side of the trailer somewhere that, you know, it'll just be more, I don't know, flexible. So let's just go over here and start with this. We're gonna take this piece we removed off of the pump, take this screw-in metal piece out, set it to the side. I'm gonna pop out that little rubber grommet that goes in there. And I'm gonna feed my ground wire through one of those holes. Boy, is that gonna be fun. All right, so I'm gonna have to cut off the end that's already on this wire. Gonna feed it through my little rubber grommet. Then I'm gonna strip that wire. Probably about that much. All right, we're gonna cut a tiny little piece of heat shrink here. We'll put that on next. And we're just gonna replace our little loopy. Stick that in there like that. Give that a little pull check, that's good. All right, now we're gonna put our heat shrink over that. That'll do.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
All right, next we're gonna, I think cut back, all we're gonna need is about 3 or 4 inches here of insulation off of this before we go screwing this up. So this will go over the whole thing, right? Yeah. There we go. Now, this is what it should look like, okay? You've got your metal nut we'll call it a nut, retaining nut on the wire. Then you've got your rubber grommet on there to keep water and everything out of it. And your wires are coming through not positive. Well, positive, negative, and ground, yes. Oh, I'm so confused. Let's just give that a couple of extra turns with a wrench. Oh yeah, it's definitely going on more. Okay guys, just take note. Give yourself a little more wire than what I did. That is gonna be a challenge. So first thing I'm gonna do is on this positive and negative, I'm gonna put some shrink tube over it. Have that ready to go. They provide you with 2 crimp sleeves. I am going to put the first one on these. Frustrating. And the red wire has to be in the way. There we go. All right. Let's crimp it down. Okay, good. Let's put the tool over the wire first. Yeah, now we're thinking, Sam. Now we're thinking. And then put the, yep, look at that. Look at, see, you can be taught, ladies and gentlemen. You can be taught. That in there, all the way. Crimp it down. Now I can take the tool out and not worry about it. If I can get the tool out. Oh, you son of a bitch. It came off. That's a major problem. Oh. Hopefully that's enough. Oh, the blue one just pulled out. Okay, we're done. We're done. Okay, everybody, I cannot stress enough that you need to leave yourself plenty of wire to work with. So make sure you strip at least 6 to 8 inches, I think, of wire to come through this piece. And I am not going to use the crimping tubes. Nope. I'm going to go ahead and solder these things. I might edit that part of the video out. I might leave it in. I don't know. That should be plenty. Okay, now those are proper connections. All right, now that we've got proper connections, I feel a lot better about soldering those rather than those cheap crimp tubes they provided. Anyway, we gotta connect our ground, and this is, you know, what's connected right now, which of course we're not gonna use that. Why in the world would we create another connection that can fail? Oh boy, that's tight. There it goes. And now we're going to take the ground wire with the loop on it that we ran through all that junk, and we're going to connect that. It'd be great if I had another hand. Why don't you guys hold this up while I tighten this screw? This little arm thing is for holding my camera. Well, guess what? See, you guys are holding it. Nice job. Just a little higher. That's good. There we go. Nice. Didn't even cross-thread it. How about that? You left yourself plenty of wire, which means you've got a lot of wire to tuck back in. That's the only issue. So we're going to try to do this neatly. Push all this wire down inside this little metal thingamabobber. And we can get this shoved back in place. Oh yeah, we're getting there. Yes, okay. Now we gotta get some screws in it. All right, got them all finger started. Good. Good. Woo. Oh, I think I'm gonna leave that part in. You guys will probably appreciate the frustration because everybody goes through that when you're trying to do a project. And I blame these little crimp tubes. They're not very good. And I was gonna put shrink wrap over it and everything, which of course strengthens it, and it's gonna be inside of there, but they wouldn't hold it all. So soldering's always better. All we have to do is connect it to the battery. So of course, I have plenty of wire to run to this battery. And I could just coil it all up, but you're gonna lose some voltage or some amperage. Yeah, going from the battery to the pump. So, and I want this to be a nice, neat package. So let's go ahead and cut this wire just enough that we need. We'll give ourselves a little bit extra, or a lot of extra. I'm not cutting it too short. All right, you don't need to see me watch. I'm just gonna cut it, we're gonna wire it, be done. Well, here we go. There it goes. Huh. Okay, that freaked me out for just a brief moment. I switched out the battery. This is a much better battery. This is actually a marine battery, deep cycle marine battery, and it turns on just fine. Okay, let's go fill it with gas. All right, here we go. First test. I put it in this trailer, of course, so I can move it around the property pretty freely. I can move it on the concrete with that hand cart, and I can hook it up to my tractor and drag it wherever I want to. I could also tow this to the gas station if I needed to do that, because that gets pretty heavy when it's full. So these have ventilated caps. Gonna make sure those vents are open so that it can suck from these tanks. Then of course we gotta make sure we open up these valves. That should allow fuel. Yep, there goes the fuel. Gravity feeding into those pipes. Open up the other one from over here. All right, now we're feeding from both tanks at once. Now this mower is the main reason I have these large tanks. It takes 10 gallons of gasoline to fill it. And that's a lot of trips back and forth to the gas station, and it's also a lot of 5-gallon cans. Here we go. Let's hope this works. We turn on the pump. Should be fueling. It would really suck to fail here. This would be bad to have failed. It is not pumping the fuel. I do not know why, but it is not pumping the fuel. I don't know what that does. There's another screw inside of there. There's some kind of something happening. I hear something in there. There it goes. Okay. I gotta show you this. This is definitely something that BreAro should put in the instructions. There is nothing in the instructions about this. This is on the meter here, okay? And if it doesn't come with a meter, you really don't have to worry about this, I guess. But this right here, there's a screw here, and then there's a screw underneath that you need to loosen in order for that to allow fuel to go through, apparently, because I loosened that and then put this screw back in, and now it pumps fuel. So let's fill up the mower. That's fast. And it's adjustable too. You can go faster or slower, just like at the gas pump. Oh, it's full. That's it. All right. Oh, I was gonna be mad. I was gonna be so mad that that wasn't working. There it is. Fuel from here into here, just like that. I tell you what, as long as it took for those JohnDow things to, I'm talking 15 minutes, probably a gallon a minute it would take, maybe even more, to gravity feed from those things. And now they don't have to be up high to gravity feed out. They can just sit here. This BreAro pump is exactly what I needed. So let's go over the costs. First, this lists, and there's a discount code, it's in the description, you can look it up if you want to get one of these. It's around $250. The JohnDow 15-gallon tanks, and they should be listed as 14-gallon tanks because that's what they actually take. Nominally, they'll take 14 gallons. So those are listed right now, it's over $200, like 215 bucks, something like that. So there's that. Then you've got to have a battery, and with all the fittings that I bought to make all of this work with the hose, blah, 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 you're around, you ready for this? $750. If you were to buy all of this with your own money right now, you would spend $750 to build what I just built. So you can go ahead and do what you will with that information. The reason I did this is I already had these tanks. And this BreAro pump was exactly what I needed to make those tanks useful again, because even as long ago as I bought them, and the tanks have held up very nicely. So as far as JohnDow is concerned, the tanks have held up very well. You know, I spent about 190 bucks each on them, so I wanted to be able to use them, and I just couldn't stand to wait all that time to have it gravity fed. So this BreAro pump is exactly what I needed. And if you already have an existing transfer tank and you just need a pump, it works really, really well. That I'm very pleased with. So anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this. I know I did. This is solving my problems. And I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you sticking with all the trouble and all the stuff that I had to do to get this working. So anyway, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time when I'm doing more stuff.